Hello and welcome to the latest in our DAD.info series of broadcasts on additional needs parenting. My name is Mark Arnold. I'm dad to James, who's 15. James is autistic, he has learning disability and epilepsy. I've been given 6 questions to answer, all around parenting a child with additional needs or disabilities, and including how that's different for dads. So buckle up, let's go through our 6 questions together and see if they can help you as you parent your child with additional needs. Our first question is this one. Do you worry about your child's future and what it will look like? Well, it would be odd if we didn't worry about the future of our child, wouldn't we? And that's particularly true when we're parents of a child with additional needs or disabilities. And so it's really important that as early as possible we start to put things in place that will help us and help our child as we and they get older. Making sure that there are people that we trust who will be able to continue to support and look after our child, perhaps when we can't. Thinking about long-term care for our child and making sure that maybe we've got a fund that we're starting to build up that will help to support our child financially as they grow up too. Putting these things in place as early as possible is really helpful for the future, but also helps us to perhaps be worrying just a little less and being a little bit more confident in the things that we've put in place to support our child. Our second question is, how do you handle challenging behaviour? Tips on reducing self-injurious and aggressive behaviour. Well, I guess that's something that many of us experience, isn't it? Our child has a meltdown or is responding to the circumstances around them in a way that can be challenging and difficult. And how we respond to that can either make that situation a little easier or sometimes a lot worse. And so thinking about how we get alongside our child when they're demonstrating through their behaviour that they are anxious, stressed, finding things difficult is really key. What are the triggers? What are the things that are creating that challenging behaviour in the first place? How can we try to limit our child's exposure to the things that are likely to trigger challenging behaviour in the first place? And if that's not possible, how can we help them to prepare for those situations better so that when those situations arrive, they're less likely to express how they're feeling in that way? But if none of that works, and often, we'll just be in one of those situations where despite all our best efforts, there's a full-on meltdown happening. What do we do then? Well, often we make the mistake of sort of crowding in on our child, getting in their face a bit too much maybe, what's the matter, what's going on, and creating an environment which can escalate that aggression and challenging behaviour. Sometimes it's the best strategy is just to take a step back, make sure that our child is safe, that they aren't in any danger of any kind, but just to give them a little bit of space, a bit of an opportunity to just start to calm down for themselves. If we can give them some distractions, if we can give them some opportunities to do something they enjoy doing that is perhaps going to distract them away from whatever it is that has caused the challenging behaviour, that's great. But sometimes just giving them that bit of space can be the first thing that heads us towards that challenging behaviour decreasing. Question 3. How do you explain your child's autism to others, other children, friends, family, strangers? Well, there are plenty of times when that's necessary, isn't it? And it might be members of our sort of close friendship group, family group, that we need to talk about our child's diagnosis for the first time. Maybe it's in a cafe or a restaurant or the cinema or some other place where perhaps our child is just demonstrating that they are different to the other kids that are there. I often talk about James as being wired differently. That he's got a different way of looking at the world, a different way of experiencing and responding to the world, to his peers. And sometimes that can look a little different to folk around us. But for James, that's normal for him. That's how he is. And actually, sometimes it's important for us to enter into his world, understand how he thinks, how he sees his environment around him, rather than always expecting him to come in our direction and look at things our way and respond to things in the way we would. So thinking about things from James's point of view is a really good first step in helping us to be able to explain James's autism and his other additional needs to others. Question 4. What are some of the best non-verbal forms of communication you have used to encourage your child's development? Non-verbal forms of communication come in all sorts of ways, don't they? But they can come in the other ways in which we naturally communicate. We communicate through body language, through facial expression, through gestures. And all of those are great ways of communicating with James and encouraging him to communicate back. James uses an iPad, and on his iPad he uses Proloquo software, which helps him to communicate. He uses PEX symbols, and he uses a little bit of signing as well. And so there's a combination of things, non-verbal ways of communication that help him to develop. But key to many of those things are building them around a structure of activity that James really enjoys. James is really food motivated. He loves different kinds of food. And so encouraging to communicate by helping him to do that through food, through asking for food, through different kinds of food, through choosing, through a range of different food-related activities, always helps James to be able to engage better with his communication and the things that he's doing. Question number 5. How have you handled pressures and expectations associated with being an additional needs parent, especially as a man or as a dad? Well, yeah, that's a huge question, isn't it? You know, those expectations, those pressures of being an additional needs parent are every day, all day. But so many of them we put upon ourselves. They're not expectations or pressures that others put on us, but we can be our own worst enemies. And especially as dads, as guys, that can be particularly true. How many of us try to be, the strong one, the one that's holding it all together, the one that's trying to sort of knit everything else together because we think that's our role. We've got to be the tough one, the strong one, whereas actually inside we're just as broken as everybody else. And sometimes just expressing how we feel can really help us and can lift some of those expectations, some of that pressure that we put upon ourselves off our shoulders. Talking to others, talking to other dads. Maybe through the DAD.info website and all of the resources that are there, the forum that's there is a great way of just being able to lift a little bit of that pressure, that expectation off our shoulders. But hey guys, we're rubbish at talking to our partners too, aren't we? But that can really help too, to actually just share how we feel, to understand better how our partners feel, to be there supporting each other. That can make a real difference, not only to that expectation, that pressure that each of us might be feeling, but also in just investing in our relationship with each other and helping that relationship to be one around openness and honesty that can be helpful and supportive to each other. Which sort of builds us on to our last question really, which is how have you handled family fallouts that result with the pressures of caring for a child with autism? And those times will come. However much we might invest in the relationships with our partners, with our other family members, there are going to be times when it all just turns to crap and we end up having a bit of a row about it all. That pressure can just build up, and sometimes it needs to just, the steam needs to get out and it just erupts sometimes. And it's really important during those times that we recognise what's going on, give each other the space we need and be willing to talk about it. So important that we don't just blame each other, start accusing each other, but actually we recognise that we're under a lot of pressure as parents, and by talking to each other or by giving each other just that little bit of space just to calm down is really important. And you know what? We're also rubbish as guys at saying sorry. sometimes we need to man up and do that too. And make sure that our partners understand that, yeah, we realise we've got it wrong and we're willing to try better and harder next time. I hope this has helped you on your journey as a dad, as a parent of a child with additional needs and disabilities. Do check out the DAD.info website for more information, more resources. Look at the other videos that we've recorded in this series. Continue the journey and keep talking to each other because that's the way that it's going to be the most help to each of us as we go on this journey together. Thanks again. See you soon.